Hello and welcome once again to episode 53 of Code Completion. We're a group of iOS developers and educators hoping to share what we love most about development, Apple technology, and completing your code. My name is Dimitri and I'll be your host once again for this episode, and I'm joined today by my fellow completionist, Fernando.
Hello.
And today we have a special guest, Matt Ronge. Welcome to the show.
Hi there. Good to be here.
It's good to have you. So before we get into our interview, let's dive into our IndieAppSpotlight. So today we are checking out TimeDeck by Caleb Panza, an iPhone widget app. So TimeDeck does one thing and it does it well. In its own words, it's a widget and it tells time. Yeah, it's that simple. TimeDeck does this by adjusting its color throughout the day, giving you an at-a-glance view of what time it is in any part of the world. TimeDeck is completely free to use, but has options to treat Caleb to a coffee, lunch, or a family dinner. So go download it today and let them know how awesome it is. So if you are an indie developer, we also want to hear from you. Please reach out to us on Twitter at Code Completion via DM so we can spotlight your app in the future as well. So let's start at the way beginning. How did you get into development, Matt?
Yeah, so I've been doing development for a long time. It started for me with I started on the Mac actually. So this was in the 90s. And at the time, I was messing around a lot with Photoshop on the Mac. This was like Mac OS Classic, like Mac OS 8, Mac OS 7, maybe. I play around with a lot of that stuff.
System
and
7.
I just was, having tons of fun on the computer. It just got deeper and deeper. And eventually I found AppleScript. And AppleScript led to, then I learned about programming. And from there, that I went deeper into other areas, dabbled in Real Basic. Dabbled with some C programming, and then really truly learned to program actually on a DOS machine. I used Turbo Pascal, and that's how I got into like really truly learning how to program. And at the time, I did some Real Basic apps and would ship them. I was a part of the shareware scene then in the late 90s, early 2000s, and so I do some apps with Real Basic and sell those there, and pretty much got hooked. Eventually, then, when OS X came out, I switched over to Cocoa and Objective-C. So, long-time Mac developer. I just had tons of fun with it.
Awesome. And I think we all do. I remember, like, back in the day, collecting Mac Addict CDs and diving right into the games folder that was included on all of them.
Yes, Mac Addict. Wow, I haven't heard that in a long time. Yeah, that was, so I got, like, some of my shareware on some of the Mac Addict CDs. Macworld CDs, and I was like super proud of that at the time. That was a great way to distribute stuff. What was the version tracker was another one. I go to version tracker, look for stuff to download. Yeah, that was different time.
Different times. So what was the process like actually getting an app that you built onto a Mac Addict CD at the time? Do you just ring them up and say, can you include this, please?
Yeah, How did I do that? I can't even remember how. I think it was through emailing folks at. It's because you had to. I think I had to get a review. Like I got a review in the magazine, and somewhere in my house, I still actually have some of the old magazines that some of my stuff was reviewed in. And so, like, if you were a review, you could get on a CD. But how exactly I got the review, I don't remember. I don't remember if I went emailing journalists or if they found me via like version tracker. I don't honestly remember. Because that was pretty much my launch plan at the time. Was pretty much like get on version tracker, like get on the different download sites. That was my my way of launching something.
Okay, so fast forward to the iPhone comes out and the iPad comes out, and you make an app called Astropad. Is that correct?
Yeah, so this was a bit into the iPad had been around for a little bit when we first did Astropad. Trying to think how many. This was before the Apple Pencil. So Astropad actually predates the Apple Pencil. And for those that don't know, Astropad is an app that mirrors part of your screen so that you can draw. You can use it like a drawing tablet, and it streams copy your screen there, and you can draw right on it, really natural, much like a Wacom Cintiq, which are usually ungodly expensive and really nice pieces of equipment, huge, bulky, expensive. We wanted to replace that. That was really the goal with Astropad. when we started, there was no Apple Pencil. So at the time we were using third-party styluses. Our favorite at the time was Adonit, was the name of the company, and they would make these like Bluetooth styluses. They were okay. They were nowhere near the Apple Pencil. But yeah, that's how we got started with Astropad. And it was about a year into Astropad. We had already launched it when the Apple Pencil came out, and that totally changed everything for us. Like all of a sudden we had a professional caliber stylus, because before that we knew that it wasn't quite there, but our hope was that either Apple would eventually do it or a third party would crack it and make something precise enough.
Right.
So we were hoping with time.
Sorry, keep going.
Oh, no, please go for it.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna ask before we keep going like further closer to the present. What were you doing before you went into Astropad? Like, were you actively developing as a developer somewhere, or were you freelancing?
Yeah, I was freelancing at the time. That's a good question. So I was freelancing, and I was actually freelancing with my co-founder, Giovanni Danelli, who I met at Apple. We were Apple interns long ago now. It feels like this was in the iPod era.
Right.
I was actually an intern there when the iPhone was first revealed, so it was around that time. And Giovanni had worked there for a while, and later pretty much got sick of working at Apple, stuck out on his own too, and I was like, hey, I've got like more freelance work going on here than I can handle. You want to join up with me and let's work on this together? And we did. We were doing email apps. I had a email framework I had built called MailCore that made it easier to build like an IMAP SMTP client. It was originally for the Mac, but I made it so that it could run on the iPhone, and that was really popular. So I did a lot of contracting and freelance work around that. But we didn't love doing freelance work. It just wasn't our jam. We were really trying to get into product development, and Astropad was our first serious attempt at that.
How did it come about? Are you like an artist? Do you draw, or was it just like, oh, this like the iPad needs to be part of my screen?
Yeah, kind of all the above. So it started with Giovanni went for a run and saw a advertisement for a Microsoft Surface, and I think we'd been doing some iPad stuff at the time. And his question is like, yeah, I wonder why you can't do that. Like in the ad, they were using Photoshop on the Surface, and he was like, gosh, I wonder why can't you do that with the iPad? I was like, that's a great question. What if you could? And so that's kind of where it began, and it resonated with me right away because, as I mentioned, going back to the 90s when I first got started with computers, I dabbled with Photoshop. I had a graphics tablet. I played around with that stuff. So while I was amateur at best, I was very familiar with it. So when he mentioned it, I was like, okay, yes, this is absolutely like this would be a killer thing. So we started working on it. It took us a long time to build it. It was the two of us, and so we freelanced and then worked on the side on Astropad. Over time, we spent more and more time as Astropad became more serious, and like we would give demos, and people were pretty impressed by it. Then we would get more. Then we started spending more time on Astropad than contracting. But it took almost a year to get there. I would say like in the beginning of the year, we were like 1 day a week on Astropad, 4 days a week contracting. By the end of the year, we were like 4 days a week on Astropad, 1 day a week contracting.
Wow.
Started to flip. And then right before we launched, we told the main company we were working with at the time, we're like, hey, like we're working on a pet project. We need like a month off to like launch this. We did that. Launch went really well. It was like, hey, we're not going to be coming back. We're not going to be contracting anymore. Which it wasn't a done deal at that point. It wasn't that like sales were super. They were good, but they weren't enough to replace our freelancing income. But the sales were enough that we knew we had to give this a shot.
Right.
Like it was like, we got something here. Let's go for it.
That's so awesome. During this period, I'm sure you knew, like from the first question, you knew like this was something like interesting, at least worth exploring. When in the process was it like? When did you cross that point where you realized like, wow, this isn't just me. This is a nice product. This is something we should build. Like, was it during a presentation or?
I've got a good story about that actually. So I went to WWDC. So I live in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area. My co-founders in the San Francisco area. I went out to San Francisco for WWDC and, met up with Giovanni while we're out there. And we took advantage of that time to meet and talk about Astropad as well. And through like a friend, it was like a friend of a friend type situation. We got connected to somebody at Pixar. We got connected to an animator at Pixar. So we're like, wow, that's really cool. Like, we've been talking to some like amateur artists. But this is like a serious pro. Like this person like lives on a Wacom Cintiq. We'd love to get their feedback. And so we just asked, like, hey, can we just stop by for a coffee at Pixar and show you what we're working on? He was like, sure. So we went over there and we show it to him. We went in the main like Pixar cafeteria and, grab some coffees and sitting down and explaining what we're doing and show it to him. And he starts drawing in Photoshop on the iPad. And he's just drawing. And then after a little while, he looks at us and he goes, guys, this is going to be a really big deal.
Nice.
And we're like, whoa, whoa. We just got like praise from like a super pro that was saying, like, this is a legit tool we're building here. So at that point, actually, we had 2 clients at the time. We went back home. We fired one of our clients, and went cut down even more. It was actually a client we didn't like that much anyway, so it wasn't.
It's always easy then.
Yeah, it was, but we knew we were giving up income right then and there. But we were just like, we've got something on our hands here. Still, we didn't know if it would sell. The launch would come later. This was probably about 6 months, I would say, before the launch. The Pixar artist told us. He was like, yeah, this is a big deal. So that was the moment right there. Was like, oh, wow. Like
we got something.
We got something.
Yeah.
So that was the key. Before that, it was like a cool tech demo. Before that point, it was like, this is super cool. We think this is amazing. Will anyone actually use this? I don't know. We will, but anybody else? I don't know. That was the turning point.
That's a great story. That's a great story. It's always hard in the beginning because, like, as a developer, everyone who's a developer knows that you get amazing, quote unquote, amazing ideas all the time, and you start building them, and then sure, they're nice. You show it to some people, they give you praise, but like getting the A-OK from a pro, and someone from like at the very top, like when you think animation, like Pixar is basically the number one hit. I would say, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
So
it was great.
So how long did it take for Astropad to go from basically a pet project that you really wanted to succeed to something that is fully backing your development efforts, something that you can build a business off of?
Yeah, so the initial development phase was about 18 months. It was a lot harder to build than we thought. Then once we released it, it was, I would say, 6 months to a year before it really started to take off. We launched in what was it? Was it January or February? I can't quite remember which one of those months it was. But in the spring was probably the lowest time for us because the euphoria of the launch had faded away. Sales were dropping because we got further away from the launch. There was less excitement around it. And so that was a tough time. It was in the summer we started to turn things around. And then the fall things really started to take off. We had polished up. We were lucky in that our timing was such that by the time Apple Pencil had arrived, we had already had like a good amount of time polishing the software at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in a really good spot. We were really lucky there.
Right situation at the right place kind of thing.
Absolutely. Because before that, we had been polishing, improving, adding features, taking customer feedback, improving. And then I want to say that fall is when the Apple Pencil came. And then we were ready to go. We were, already things had been looking up for us before that, but then that was like turbocharged things.
So from that point forward, sales just continued. Did you put any specific effort into marketing Astropad at that point?
Yeah, we did. That's actually something we did during the summer, but like starting in the spring when things got tougher for us. We started to do some specific marketing. One thing we did right away that helped us a lot is we were originally charging just for the Mac app, and the iPad app was free. We flipped that on its head. We started charging for the iPad app, and we made the Mac app free, and so that meant we could charge in the App Store. So that we also lowered the price, and that helped. That helped. Each of these things helped, and Apple had also noticed what we were doing. And they were really encouraging us. The App Store team was really encouraging us to charge through the App Store. So that was another reason we made the switch as well too. And it did pay off because in the future we did end up getting some features out of that too, where they feature us on the App Store, and that helped a lot as well. There wasn't like one big marketing thing we did. It was a series of many things, like I was, describing, like changing how we price it and sell it. Another thing was we made a version of our website showing how you could use it for photography and retouching. And so we shot a new video. We did a bunch of like graphics and different things showing how you could use it with photography. And then we approached a bunch of different photography sites. And we're like, hey, check this out. And so that was really successful for us because it all of a sudden opened up a new market to us that previously didn't know about Astropad. And that helped a ton as well because, well, frankly, photographers are used to spending a lot of money on gear. Illustrators, not as much. Illustrators tend to be not as much typically spending as much on gear as photographers. Photographers have crazy expensive lenses and lighting and cameras, and like they're used to that. So you show up with $30 to $50 tool, and it's like, yeah, no problem. So we had some really good sales out of that going after the photographers. We also released an iPhone version as well that you could use on like the larger iPhones. You could use it on. That helped draw attention. We've actually discontinued that since. It was never a big success for us, but it helped. We were able to get a feature out of it, an Apple feature out of it. We did Force Touch, like I think that was what it was called at the time. 3D Touch, Force Touch, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
We did that. Also helped us get more attention, more people know about us. So it was worth it for the marketing effort, but the iPhone version eventually just kind of nobody was using it, so we discontinued it. But it was many things like that. Those are some of them that come to mind that kind of moved the needle the most for us.
Constantly working at it, basically. Never
Constantly
stopping.
working at it. Yeah.
Just like the app?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot. Yeah, I was doing, adding new revisions, keep updating and improving the app, make it faster. That was something we always got from users. It was like, we want it to be faster, lower latency, faster, lower latency, and so we just drive to get that. And over time, that's why we were in a really good spot when the Apple Pencil came around.
So what was the inspiration that pushed you past Astropad and into Luna?
Yeah, great question. It actually came directly out of Astropad because Astropad only mirrors. Astropad mirrors your screen, and that's cool. But one thing that the Wacom Cintiqs do is they act as a full screen. So when you're drawing on them, they're not just mirroring another screen; they're like a full screen. So there was that. We wanted feature parity with the Wacom Cintiq. That was like our goals. Like, we want to build a Wacom replacement. In order to do that, we also need second screen support. The other thing is, if your aspect ratio on your screen didn't match the iPad, you'd get these black bars on the top and the bottom, almost like a TV, right? Like a movie that doesn't quite fit on a TV right. It would look like that. So that's kind of a bummer, not using all the screen real estate. And people would ask us, like, how can I use this for my full canvas? And we'd be like, well, you can't really, because what you're mirroring, the aspect ratio doesn't match. So that was a customer frustration. And then our customers, too, just were like, we want more screen real estate. And so we're like, okay. How can we make it so that you can use Astropad as a second screen while drawing on it? So we investigated it. We looked at all the different APIs and the ways to do this. Turns out there's no good way to do it through software at the time. That there were some hacky ways to go about doing it, but it didn't have GPU support. Photoshop barely ran in it. Like, it was a pile of hacks a mile deep to do it. So we're like, all right, this isn't going to work. Like, we absolutely need GPU support. Like, our people are drawing, they're using 3D rendering stuff. Like, we need, like, this needs to be reliable. Plus, we didn't feel good about building a major feature on a pile of hacks. Like, it just seemed like a maintenance nightmare. Like, we did not feel good about it. It's cool as a proof of concept, but as like something to build a business around, not really. So we're like, So then what happened is, we had users, believe it or not, that would take the headless dongles you would use for like a server farm where you would plug in the back to have a screen that shows up so you could like remote in and things. So these like headless, you can get them off Amazon. And they would use those and they would customize them so that it would match Astropad. So they could literally get Astropad on this. And we're like, holy crap. Like, our users are going to this extent to get second screen support? They're like hacking third-party hardware? Like, maybe we should make the hardware ourselves, because then we can like make sure it works smoothly out of the box. Like, we can make sure you plug it in and it integrates with Astropad and it's easy and it's awesome. Yeah, let's do that. Well, so then we started dabbling in the hardware space. We got connected to a friend that actually a former Apple colleague. He was an intern with us as well, actually. But he was on the hardware side of things. And he was doing a hardware startup. He kind of showed us the ropes a little bit, where to get started, and we started dabbling with hardware.
Wow.
And our goal.
Did you end up hiring like any of your hacker customers?
No, we didn't. They definitely because none of them were like necessarily like hardware engineers. They were just like really passionate.
They're happy being creative.
Engineers,
computer enthusiasts. Yeah. And just like knew enough to be dangerous, and like would cobble together like these different third-party utilities and these like dongles off Amazon and this duct tape arrangement of stuff.
Still, it feels like unbelievable. I mean, it really speaks again, coming back to the amazingness of the idea that people were that passionate, right? Just hacking things around to make it work.
Yeah, and it was like, people want this really, really bad. Like, so we should try to make it easier. And then it also fit with our like, okay, we want to be like a Wacom replacement. So like, to really truly be a replacement, like we need this feature. And we that was a journey in itself, building the hardware. But yeah, we were eventually able to pull it off. We did a Kickstarter. But during the development, okay, long-winded way to answer your question here. During the development, we were playing with it. So this was originally only supposed to be a add-on for Astropad.
Mm-hmm.
But while using it, we're like, holy crap, this is really cool. Like, we had the Astropad feeling all over again, where we're like using this and we're like, this is so good. Like, this shouldn't be just for Astropad customers. Like, this needs to be a product in its own, because this is by far the best second display on an iPad we've ever seen. It works really, really well because it was backed by all the tech we'd built for Astropad. So really low latency mirroring over Wi-Fi, and then a true second display, not hacks without GPU support, because you plug it in, the computer thinks it's a monitor. Mm-hmm. So it was just really, really good. And we're like, okay, that's it. This is a spin-off product. So to this day, it still works with Astropad. You can plug in Luna, and it'll detect Astropad, and it'll work together and set everything up. But the vast, vast majority of our customers with Luna, with our hardware, use it standalone without Astropad. And it became its own business in its own right.
You also blew the Kickstarter goal out of the water. I just found it for the original Kickstarter.
Yeah.
It was a 30,000 goal, and you went 645,000. So people, we could probably say that people wanted this.
Yes. And again, it was much like our Astropad launch. We weren't sure going into it. Mm-hmm. Again, we were like, we think this is awesome. The people we show it to thinks it's awesome. But will people pay money for it? And the other thing is there were software stuff out there, software apps. They're kind of hacky, kind of worked, kind of didn't. But for some people, they worked good enough. And they'd be like $10. And we're like, okay, we're going to charge way more for a hardware piece. Is anybody willing to pay that? Or are people just going to say, I don't really care. I already got this software thing. It's good enough. And yeah, as you can see from the Kickstarter, we got a resounding answer. And the answer was yes.
Yes.
People very much wanted it.
I'm actually using one right now, so our listeners can't see this, but I'm sharing a screen with everyone for our show notes. And this is running off of an iPad, running off of a Luna display that's connected to my
awesome.
Mac Pro. And it's mounted right above the camera, so that way it's in perfect line of sight.
So
yeah,
that's
I
awesome.
have one
That's really
here.
Clever too. I love that.
And then I have another 4 that are connected to Mac Minis. I don't think you can see them. They're in that little cubby over there.
Wow.
And those are older versions of Mac OS on each Mac Mini. And I just use that as its screen, so that way the Mac Minis are all tidied away out of sight. So yeah, big fan.
That's great.
So
That's great.
Was it you, Dimitri? Were you the hacker?
I was not the hacker, no.
Wouldn't be surprised now if you told me. You were like, yeah, I figured it out. How to. It was there's third-party utility too. I can't remember. It was Set Res X or something that allowed you to change the resolution on a. Yeah. Anyway, it was. Yeah, it was pretty wild.
That's such an amazing. I mean, Jobs said it before that if you really love software, you got to get your own hardware or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So it's so cool to hear a story like yours where you go into software and they're like, no, we need to get better, and the only way is through hardware. And I'm not. I'm sorry to say I'm not as a fan of Luna Display. Not because I don't like it. I just hadn't heard before.
Yeah, sure.
Unlike Dimitri. Yeah. But I'm looking at it and it's just gorgeous. The product is just a tiny dongle, and so it's such a cool product.
Thank you. That goes to Giovanni, who had the original inspiration there with it, where he really wanted it to be gem-like. That's what he kept calling it. He's like,
I want
it to be like a gem on your computer. So it was obnoxiously hard to get it as small as it is. We could have much more easily made something that had a tail coming off of it, that you'd plug in.
Right.
almost more like a USB-C hub, right? Like that form
Mhm.
factor is much, but to get it within that small enclosure, that was tricky. That was very tricky.
Well, you did it, so congrats.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was, and our first hardware product. So that was thankfully we found a lot of good people on the way that helped us out, make it a reality. You know, good hardware engineers, industrial designers, and all the like that helped us out.
So was it at this point that you decided to grow your team past the two of you, or did you do that before?
Mm.
Yeah, we did that before Luna. We had a marketing person, we had support, we had one or two engineers at that point. We were still small. I mean, we're still small. We're still a small team. But we were really small then. We were like 5 people when we did Luna. And Luna also did force us to grow the team further. Because if you're going to support a hardware product, there's just more to do. There's logistical stuff too, like manufacturing it, getting that from there to a distribution center to ship it to places. Like there's just more involved there than delivering an app via the App Store. So that forced us to grow our team even more. Today we're around about a dozen people. We're going to be growing again because we just launched on Windows, and now that we're multi-platform, we need more help as well. So that'll be growing but it's become complicated enough where we need a larger team. You know, we have hardware, we have software across Mac, Windows, iOS. And then all the other things I talked about, the logistical details of building and shipping a hardware product, right? So we've been forced to really expand. It's big enough that like me and my co-founder alone can't do it anymore. We need the help of many other people at this point.
So let's talk about Windows a little bit. So Apple comes out with Sidecar. I think that's what it's called.
Yes.
I haven't used it since they announced it because I have a perfect solution already. So
I'm happy to hear that.
Apple. So Apple comes out with this thing, and you all pretty much decide that you're in trouble. Like how did that conversation happen?
That was tough. That was some real tough times. To be honest, I was more concerned about like Touch Macs than I was Apple doing something Luna-like.
And
that was
still
actually
didn't happen, so that's good.
Yeah, it didn't. But that's actually going back to building Luna. That was another one of the reasons we did Luna was to diversify because we felt Astropad was very vulnerable if there was a Touch Mac that existed. And we figured if Apple was going to do a Touch Mac, it would support Pencil. And then it would be like, well, what's the point of Astropad then? So we were thought, well, okay, even if they introduce a Touch Mac, you're still going to want to have a second display for it. So like Luna is a good way to improve Astropad and hedge our bets as well. So we didn't really see it coming because we also didn't think that they've been so like adamant about like the Mac UI shouldn't be used for touch. So we're like, yeah, well, if you put it on an iPad, you got to touch it. So we just don't think they're going to do this. Like we knew it was a risk. We weren't totally blind to it, but we're like, we just don't think they're going to do this.
I think you still can't touch with Sidecar. Like you're limited to
that's
using
what's
the
interesting.
pencil.
That's right. They turned off the touch interaction. You can only interact with pencil, which is, I guess, one way to get around it. With ours, we allow full touch interaction. We, zoom, pan, the whole 9 yards. So that really rocked us. That was hard too because the team we were already about a dozen people. And so we had to tell them, like, they saw what was happening and had to tell them then that our plan was to get to Windows. It was tough.
Yeah.
It was not a sure thing by any means. But we're like, hey, we're not going anywhere. We're going to stick this out. We're going to stick with what we've got. We're going to add features they don't have. We're going to find ways to compete. And long term, we're going to go to Windows. And that's what we did. We introduced a feature called Mac to Mac that allows you to use another Mac as a display rather than an iPad. So great for if you have an old iMac You want to use it as a display. That'll work with Luna. That's been very popular, very, very popular. Or just an old laptop you want to use as well. That's very popular as well. Also introduced a way to use it like what you're doing, Dimitri, with Mac Minis, where you can kind of just plug it into a Mac Mini and kind of add a headless wireless display with your iPad. So that's been popular as well. So those were new ways we found to compete. And then Astropad also was more competitive, actually, I would say, because we had a lot deeper features than Sidecar, a lot more customization. And then otherwise it was getting to Windows. But it was a really tough time for the whole team. Like, we were fighting tooth and nail to keep things going. It was not pretty. I remember waking up and being like, is this a nightmare? Did I have a really bad dream? And it was like, nope. This is reality. Like, we're competing with Apple now.
Yeah. Not to get too in the weeds there, but like, I read your Twitter, your very recent Twitter thread.
Yeah.
And one of the really interesting points for me was at this point in the story, your whole code base is an Objective-C.
Yes.
Right? So
I want to ask the same thing.
we could just like, it has a C in it, so you can probably just run it on Windows, right?
Yeah, it's Cocotron, right?
Nope. We tried. Let me tell you, we tried. We tried using GNU Step. We tried. The problem was there was a lot of big pieces missing.
Right.
It's not. Yeah.
Arc.
Oh.
Yep. Well, and things like what was it? libdispatch, or like the what's the other name for it?
Grand Central
Dispatch, GCD. We used that heavily, and it, at the time at least, there was no Windows port. Now Apple had one internally, but there was nothing public, and there were some people trying to do like open source versions, but like
they're not.
I don't know. Yeah, an alpha threading library, like an alpha quality threading library that you're building around. It's just like, no, that's just not. And so we knew we had to shift away. C++ was an obvious answer, but none of us particularly like C++. I'd done some C++.
Does.
No. And I couldn't imagine building a giant code base on C++. Like, we didn't have the experience. Nobody was excited about it. And then somebody on our team was like, well, what about Rust? And I was like, and we were like, well, yeah, what about it? Because I knew about it because I'd seen it, and I was like, oh, is that like mature enough now? Like, can you actually use that now? Because I'd seen when it was first released. He was like, yeah, it's really good for cross-platform stuff. I'm like, all right, let's... We explored it some. Like, he put together a presentation on why he thought Rust, this is Jeremy on our team, why he thought Rust was a good solution. And we're like, hey, do you want to like rewrite a major portion of it? Because the other thing I should tell you is within it, in order to pull this off, there's actually a custom network transport layer instead of TCP in there. Mm-hmm. And there's also a custom video codec in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's like hyper optimized. So there was a lot of code, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm super excited about porting this to Rust." And the rest of the team too was like, "Yeah, this is great. Let's do it." And so that was like our obvious. It seemed like a very future forward-looking language. Our team was excited about it. It wasn't C++. And so we started a big rewrite in Rust. We also tried, I think it was Win Objective-C. It was a project out of Microsoft, but it was being deprecated by Microsoft as well. So we knew it wasn't also a long-term option. So we started this massive rewrite. It took 2 years.
I can imagine.
How did you go about it? Like, just randomly picking
file
pieces
by file?
Or the yeah.
Yeah, so there were parts that got the network layer is really where we started. So we have like different components in there, and they have like different services within there. So it's like an architecture where you have these different services connected by the network layer. And so it was like, okay, let's start with the network layer. And then once we do that, then we'll start turning on different services and rewriting those different services. And so that's the way it went. The codec was easier because it was in a lot of C code already. And the parts that were Objective-C, I actually converted to C++, because that was pretty straightforward. See, the thing about the codec is it's super high performance. So the code is pretty simple. It doesn't do a lot of object-oriented programming. It doesn't like anything fancy. You pretty much don't want to do because it's slow. So it's very easy in that way where I could almost just change like the function signature and turn it into C++. So I was able to do that, and we're still running a lot of that today. But it was really the network stuff that was heavy Objective-C that was much harder to port over. But I mean, our team pulled it off. It was a incredible effort, but they managed to do it and do a really good job.
So are you now using that Rust code on the iPad as well? Or is it just on the host's computer?
It's everywhere. Damn. It's everywhere. It's on the iPad, it's on Windows, it's on Mac. Now, on the iPad, at the GUI layer, on the iPad and the Mac, there is still a lot of Objective-C.
Right.
That's connected to the UI, but all the infrastructure is Rust at this point. And on the iPad. I mean, there's some areas here and there where we've... Rust makes it really easy to bridge to C, so we use that to bridge into Objective-C. And so that's in a number of spots where we've kept some of the Objective-C stuff. And then on Windows, it's, again, the Rust core with a C# UI layer on top. But it's a pretty thin UI.
Did you end up like... Did you end up like printing your old Objective-C code and then burning it down? Just like a goodbye.
No.
Hold a funeral for it.
No, maybe now's the time to do it, though. Well, because it was only until recently that we actually like shipped and all our products are on it. So, yeah, maybe that's the ceremony to put it to rest. RIP Objective-C code. Rust has been pretty incredible, though, that we're able to do stuff and deploy it on all the platforms. It's fast. It's super fast.
So what was the most different part about Rust when you were learning about it and using it when it comes to your existing experiences programming up until this point?
One thing that is probably the memory model, because so Rust doesn't do garbage collection. It's essentially using the compiler to track like the lifetimes of objects, and the compiler is sort of like Objective-C with Arc, sort of like kind of. It's a different way of doing it. It doesn't use reference counting to do it. Instead, it's actually tracking stuff like, oh, when it goes out of scope, we need to delete this object. So the compiler's tracking it. But how that became difficult is in C in a number of places for performance reasons. We were doing some funky memory stuff. And some of that doesn't translate directly over to Rust. Like, it won't allow you. Like, the compiler, one thing that's really cool about the compiler with Rust is it'll prevent you from making race conditions in many cases. From, thread, like, prevents you from accessing the same memory from multiple threads. Things like that you can't do. The compiler will yell at you. It won't compile the code if you try to do something like that. So tons of memory safety issues go out the window. And so many of the things we were doing, if you weren't careful, would be technically not memory safe. But how we were doing them, we knew they were. But the compiler looks at it, and it doesn't know that. It's like, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. So some of those things couldn't be translated one-to-one for that reason. And that's one of the super powerful. I need to pull up the Rust website here, how they describe it. But it's kind of mind-blowing that it has that performance and it has that level of safety.
It's a similar set of trade-offs than what Swift set out to do, like very first with memory safety and now with actors and isolation and stuff like that. Do you think that if you were to start this process today, not knowing about Rust, you would have jumped into using Swift, especially now that it's compatible with Windows? It wasn't like a few years ago.
Before you answer that, let me go a little bit into the prequel of that question, which is in like before Sidecar was announced, Swift was already out, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So what are your thoughts? Like going on Dimitri's question, would you do it? Or were there any thoughts at that point on migrating to Swift? Like,
well, pre-Sidecar, no, not really. Like we were aware of it, but we just it wasn't a high priority. We were like, at some point we're gonna have to do Swift, but we're old school Objective-C programmers. We're probably gonna be kicking and screaming when we do it.
Yep.
But there was a lot of cool stuff to like about Swift. We were just like so busy. We're like, nah, we don't want to learn a new language. Like, whatever. Like, we're gonna keep working.
Little did you know you would be learning a new language very soon.
Yeah. We did look at Swift actually for doing cross-platform stuff. There's a couple things though. The by far the biggest reason we didn't do Swift is because how closely tied Swift is to Apple. At the end of the day,
I was going to say that
Apple is the one that controls Swift. And there wasn't Windows support at the time. There were talk of adding Windows support. But then the thing is are they going to keep it up to date? Do they actually care? I don't know, right? And that could change on a whim, right? Like it'd be like 2 years later, all of a sudden Apple's like, yeah, you know what? We decided we're deprecating Windows support.
Yep.
Right. So we didn't want to be, especially because we were just burned by Sidecar, we didn't want to be coupled to Apple. So we're like, all right, we want something that's really platform agnostic. And Rust was that. Rust goes everywhere. It's not tied to one platform or one development toolkit, or it runs everywhere. So we really like that about it. Another thing is actually the performance of Rust is actually higher performance often than Swift as well. Like Swift, I didn't know it's gotten better over the years too, but Swift, you can still get yourself into situations where you can write some pretty slow code versus Rust. I forgot what they call it again too, but they make it so that if you use like higher level abstractions in it, they've made it so that always compiles down into something fast. Like they're not going to add something to their standard library, their library in there that you use and it's going to be slow. Like it's not like, oh, if I use this iterator, all of a sudden my code's going to be slow. No. From the beginning, Rust has been designed as like a high performance language for like close to the metal kind of work. And that actually fit well with our use case. Where Swift was a little bit higher level, actually. A little bit higher level, more UI, which is great for the use case. Most people use it for, but for us, we needed that maximum performance, and Rust just seemed to fit the bill for that. Plus, it helped that our people were really excited about it.
Yeah, Swift definitely lets you write unperformant code if you don't know what you're doing. But there is quite a lot of like compiler smarts that do just like what you said, where it will take your map and turn it into a tight for loop at the end of the day after it can distill away all the checks and memory safety verifications. You just need to make sure to compile in release mode. If you don't compile in release mode, it's going to be freaking slow.
And I think that has gotten a lot better. The same thing's true of Objective-C as well. You can write really slow Objective-C code.
Sure, I agree.
But Rust just really has a performance as one of their key objectives as a language. So that fit really naturally with what we needed to do. So there's a lot of things I wouldn't use Rust for. Like it's sometimes it's a power tool where you just need a hammer.
Right. Yeah. Though if you truly wanted to run everywhere, like Java would have been a great solution. No, I'm kidding.
We've been a dog slow and need a ton of memory.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Java's pretty fast. It just eats a ton of memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gotten a lot faster, at least. Yeah.
Well, it seems you went you went through the trials and tribulations that Apple put in your way, like moving from Objective-C to Rust while competing with Sidecar, while trying not to like give up. That's not
not going
we
to
can laugh about it now, but
yeah. Oh, it was hard. It was really hard. And the project took way longer than we thought too. So
right.
Yeah, it just felt like it kept dragging on.
That software?
Yeah, it was classic software project. It can't possibly take that long. No, it will.
Especially the rewrite.
The rewrite. Yeah. Because we didn't want to break the Mac app because we had all these existing features in the Mac app. It needed to have feature parity. So it was like,
From step one. So you did another Kickstarter for the Windows version, correct? If my memory serves me correctly.
Yes.
And how would you say the launch has gone? Because the Windows version has come out, and you are running your victory laps around at this point.
Definitely. We're much more relaxed now. now that it's shipped. We felt really good about the Kickstarter. For us, while it wasn't as big as the Mac Kickstarter had been, it was close to it. And so that made us feel really good that there was definitely an opportunity here, that there was definitely a large market out there. And so that was good. Otherwise, I'd say the Windows release overall took longer than we originally thought. But as we were just saying, that's kind of software, especially the network layer. The network layer was really tricky to get right because we're trying to make it work on both platforms. And we wanted to make it so that we could swap the Mac apps. Like, we wanted to swap the guts of the Mac apps without users noticing.
Right.
And that was hard. It was really hard. We managed to do an incredible job. The team did an amazing job at it. I was expecting a lot more bugs than we got, just because it's a ton of new code, but it's been remarkably smooth. And the Windows launch has gone really, really well. There's been a lot of interest in it. That was also another fear of ours is, are people still interested in this product? It's taken us longer than we wanted to get here. Is there still demand? What does the market look like? Are Windows users willing to pay for this?
A new dongle?
The answer is yes. It's done really, really. It's done really well. We got great press coverage too for our launch, and I'm really, really happy with how it's gone.
Awesome.
I'm just a broken record here, but I'm going over the Kickstarter for the Windows.
Oh yes.
It's just such an amazing product. It just makes so much sense. Like I get why Dimitri has like 5 of them. It's just if I had a couple of Mac Minis, I would totally get one because it's perfect for a lot of use cases. And I can see, taking words from the famous Jobs, this is like a glass of ice water for someone in hell.
Well, that was actually what we wanted to do for Windows as well. Is we really wanted to have a level of polish that you often don't see in Windows apps. We wanted to bring what we had done on the Mac and bring it, and I think we did. I really think we did. We did a lot of the stuff we do on the Mac. And we added it to the Windows stuff. We've gotten great reviews from it too. One of my favorite was Paul Thoreau. He's a big guy in the Windows community. If you don't know him, he does Thoreau.com, and he sent us a message after we sent him a demo unit. He's like, "This works really, really well." I was like, "Yes, that's what we were going for, right?" Like we want to try to bring that plug and play and smooth software experience to Windows customers. And you can totally do it on Windows. We did it. It wasn't easy, but it was not easy on the Mac either to do that kind of stuff. It's never easy to make, and there's still, of course, bugs and a lot of stuff we need to fix. But I'm really, really happy with how the initial release went. I just thought we'd have tons more bugs than we did.
Well, if it was easy, then everyone would be doing it, right? It's the
That's
fact that
what
it's hard
that's
that
what I
you
try
can
to
put the hard
say all
work
the
into
time.
it.
Yeah, when we're stuck and we're in not the best mental state, I'd be like, that's what I try to remind myself. Well, this is easy, there'd be a lot of competitors and this wouldn't be a good space to go in, but it's not easy, and that's that's why we're doing it, and that's why we're able to build a business around it.
And that's also software. As long as you give customers more value than bugs, you'll be fine. Like they'll complain if both are like pretty close, but as long as value is on top, you're in business.
Yeah.
So what's next? The touchscreen device so that way you are non-reliant on Apple at all?
That'd be amazing. Maybe an Android tablet. We do our own Android tablet. Something.
Luna for Linux.
Luna
It'll be the only Android tablet. There's no more left.
It's true. Yeah. What is next? Well, for us, the big next thing is we brought Luna to Windows first, but we need to bring Astropad to Windows. We actually have for our main flagship version now is called Astropad Studio. It has the most features in it, and it's a subscription app, and it's available on the Mac. It's got a lot more features than Sidecar, so we know a number of people stick with it for that reason. Things like pressure curves and all sorts of per-app customizations, things that really matter. Even some things like two-finger tap to undo, right? Like that doesn't work in Sidecar. Like that would drive me crazy. We have a lot of those sorts of features, and you can customize it. If you don't want two-finger tap to do undo, you want it to change the color to red. You can do that.
Right.
So we need to bring that to Windows. We have a free beta. We call it Project Blue. Blue as in Windows. You can check it out. You can download it for free right now. It's still very much beta. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't work. But we're gonna take all the good work we did on Luna, and we're gonna bring it to Astropad. So then Astropad is gonna be a cross-platform product. You're gonna be able to use your iPad with your Windows or your Mac computer. And I'm really excited about that too, because we've had a ton of people sign up for a free beta. So that tells me that people really want it, because we've got tons of, I'll get an email from somebody the other day like, when is Project Blue going to go away? Because I love it. I really don't want it to go away. I use it part of my workflow. I'm like, yes, that's awesome. I'm glad people like it or are using it. And so next year, Project Blue will eventually go away, and it'll become part of the official Astropad Studio, and we'll get Windows support. So that's the big thing that's next for us.
Because I can see a lot of use too, especially on Windows. Like that's where all the 3D artists are, because the Mac has been like pushing that out, and maybe they'll change with the new hardware that Apple came out with, but it won't be anytime soon. So like having specific feedback, like as you said, the curves and more accurate control, I think is what people really want out of this.
Yep.
Yeah, and even with Apple's new hardware though, it's so much more affordable to get high-powered PCs.
Yeah,
than
it's a $5,000 laptop if you want the good one.
Right. And the kind of desktop PC you can build for $5,000 is insane.
Yep.
So for that reason, I still see a lot of people on, you need tons of storage, you need multiple massive GPUs that are really hot, and you've got a sophisticated fan, right? So there's still going to be a place for that. So I agree. I think for the same reason, I think 3D is going to be a big part of Astropad on Windows. All the game developers too, they're all on Windows.
Yeah, writing C++.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Maybe the only ones that like C++.
They're just stuck with it.
Yeah, they're stuck.
So very last question. Since your team has grown, are you still coding, or are you more managerial at this point?
No, more manager these days. I wrote the codec originally, so I dip into that from time to time. I'm involved a lot with the development process, so I know what's going on. But I haven't written much code for a while. It's pretty much all the... Yeah, definitely at times. It's always fun when I have an excuse to go in and work on some code. Usually it's like if it's something super specialized and I'm just like the one to go in. Something with, because we do a bunch of GPU stuff on the Mac too, Metal and OpenCL, and there's some codec stuff. And I did a bunch of that originally. So if we need to go in and tweak it, like I'll go in and do it. And that's always fun to get in there and get my hands dirty. I just don't have as much uninterrupted time to do it now as I used to.
So yeah, this one. Imagine it's 5 years ago, and someone comes to you and tells you like, "Hey, when is Astropad and Luna coming to Windows?" What do you say to them?
Well, this actually happened.
Really?
Yeah, people wanted Astropad on Windows and Luna for a long time, and there was a joke. For a while, we had like a community forum, and one of us, I don't remember if it was me or my co-founder, responded and said like, we gave them a year. It was like, I forget. It was like it's coming in 2017 or something. You know, and it's 2021 and it's finally here. So we were off by many years.
But you did it.
We way underestimated we're like, oh, we're going to use GNU Step and we're just going to run the Objective-C on Windows and no big deal. We'll figure this out.
How hard could it be?
Yeah, how hard could it be? The rewrite was really, really, really hard. I don't know if Sidecar hadn't happened, we might never have done it. It was
I
that
bet.
hard.
Yeah.
That was the push.
Yeah, because otherwise we probably would have gotten into it and been like, this is ridiculous. Like, we can't stop progress and rewrite for 2 years. Like, we can't do this. But Sidecar put us in the position we had no other choice.
Yeah.
So it's a good.
That's fair. Yeah.
It's a good spot for the future now, though, right? Like, it sucked at the time, but now we've got a really good cross-platform base to work from.
Awesome. So this week's episode of Code Completion is brought to you by Sticky Widgets. Sticky Widgets is the absolute easiest way to put a sticky note on your home screen and edit it quickly. It's so easy, you never need to open the app itself. Add a sticky widget to your home screen through the iOS home screen editor and tap on it to edit. That's about it. Of course, there's tons of customization options as well. Font, color, text size, alignments, all conveniently located in the system's edit widget interface. Add as many sticky widgets as you like and put them in a smart stack. Sticky widgets are digital sticky notes for your phone. Use them however you like. Sticky Widgets is a free download on the App Store, and additional font and color options are available for a one-time in-app purchase. Thank you so much to Sticky Widgets for sponsoring Code Completion. Check out Sticky Widgets on the iOS App Store today. So now that we've gone through our topic, it's time for Complete the Code, where we quiz our listeners on your knowledge of Swift, Apple, and all things development. Since I forgot to post anything about last week's prompt due to all the week's excitement, let's go over it one more time. So as always, if you are listening to the podcast, please check the podcast art or the show notes to follow along. So when a cell is tapped, we switch on an index paths row to determine which screen to present. What can go wrong in this code that switches on an index path when a cell is tapped? So if you think you can complete the code, tweet your answer to us with hashtag CompleteTheCode, all one word. The first to get it right will get a shout out on our next week's episode. So with all that out of the way, it's time for Compiler Error, a segment where I get to test my fellow completionists and our guests' knowledge about Swift, Apple, and all things development. And today we actually have a theme, and that is modern display technologies. So I figured that would be right up your alley, Matt.
Right, I have a chance. If you were getting me on Swift, it was going to be game over.
Okay, so I'll read over the statements one at a time, and then I'll pick one of you to go over them, and feel free to read them aloud one more time to share your thought process. It's your chance to pick which one you think is fake and which one is the compiler error, and then I'll go to the other one, and they'll get the chance just the same. So statement number 1, Thunderbolt 4 not only supports DisplayPort 2.0, but also allows the full 80 gigabits per second to be dedicated for video output, allowing 8K displays up to a whopping 240 frames per second. Statement number 2, DisplayLink allows displays to be connected over USB or Ethernet by using an adapter that transforms the data signal into a DisplayPort or HDMI signal. Statement number 3, SDI, or Serial Digital Interface, is the preferred connection on film sets, connecting cameras to recording equipment, and allows for up to 48 gigabits per second over a single connection. And statement number 4, also limited to 48 gigabits per second, HDMI 2.1 supports HDR10 footage of up to an 8K resolution at 120 Hz on supported cables. So, Fernando, since you know how this works, why don't you go first?
I may be having some connection issues because there's no way I'm getting that right, and I had to blame it on something. Damn, I don't know. Okay, let's like.
Come on, you wanted a bunch of displays for your M1 Mac, right? Now you gotta know how those displays work, Fernando.
Stupid M1. Thunderbolt 4 is probably the best protocol in the world, so yes, it can show 8K displays at 240 FPS. That's obvious. Obviously, it's obvious. DisplayLink allows displays to be connected over USB or Ethernet by using an adapter. No, that's not true. I don't think it's true. SDI is probably a made-up interface in my mind. I don't think it exists. So no, that is also not true. Also limited to 48 gigabytes per second. HDMI 2.1 supports HDR footage up to an 8K resolution at 120 Hz. That is false. HDMI supports only 30 frames per second.
So it's 3 false. There's 3 correct ones and 1 false one.
Exactly. So it's number 1 because Thunderbolt is the best.
So Thunderbolt is the fake one.
Oh, damn. Oh, no. I'm in big trouble. No. Okay. If it's fake, I want to say number 2. Number 2 is not true.
Okay. Excellent choice.
Thank
you. Matt?
Please save me, Matt.
Yeah. This is hard. This is very hard. So number 1.
You wrote a video codec. How hard can this be?
Yeah, I don't know these standards off the top of my head. Some of them, like, yeah. Actually, I look them up all the time. But so there's 3 true and 1 false. Right?
Yep.
Okay. So I am going to go with. So number 1, I believe, is true. Again, I think with, like Fernando said, that Thunderbolt tends to be one of the most advanced connection types. It is true you can use all of the lanes on it for video. So I believe that is that's actually how. Now I'm going off topic a little bit, but the 5K displays work from Apple. It actually only works over Thunderbolt. It can't do a USB-C DisplayPort connection. Doesn't have enough bandwidth. Has to be Thunderbolt. So I think number 1 is true. Number 2 is also true. DisplayLink is a company out there that sells adapters that allow you to. Actually, they do similar stuff actually to what we do in Astropad. So that's how I know about them. SDI, I'm not familiar with film set stuff, but I think that is true because there is something called NDI. It's like Network Digital Interface for cameras. So I have to imagine that that's like the successor to SDI. So I'm going to say that's true. Number 4, I'm going to say this is false. 10-bit HDR, 8K at 120 Hertz. I'm just suspicious that HDMI can do that much.
An excellent choice as well.
Why did I say number 2 is false? Why? I panicked. There were just so many.
I wonder too, and I'll explain why.
Oh my god, no.
So let's start with number 1.
Guys, I have to go.
Because you both agree with this one. So Thunderbolt is a connection where you have, I believe, 2 lanes in each direction, and they're 20 gigabit lanes, and that allows you to have 40 gigabits bidirectional connection. But what Thunderbolt 4 enables is to use all those lanes in one direction towards the display, and therefore you can get the full 80 gigabits by setting it in that alt mode. So this one is absolutely true. And it allows you to do stupid high bandwidth stuff, which was up until now not really practical. Like even over fiber, it's very rare to get fiber connections that are over like 40 gigabit in a data center. Like you are paying a lot of money for the little for the optics for 100 gigabit fiber connection. So this is right up there with that. So that's really neat. It's just a Thunderbolt cable, which don't even need to be active anymore. I don't know if any of you knew that, but Thunderbolt cables can be passive now.
Wow.
As long as they're short enough. So that one's true. Going to number 2, Fernando, you in front of you use a little gizmo that gives you access to lots of monitors on your M1 Mac, and that is powered by DisplayLink. So I wonder often how you decide these, but this one is also true. As you said, Matt, they set up a virtual display. Unlike what you do with Luna Display, because with Luna Display you actually present a display to the computer and it renders to a buffer, but you are capturing that in software and then sending it over the network, correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So unlike that, this does it entirely in software, probably through kernel hacks, and they have not been super stable in the past as a result of that. But Fernando, how does it work for you? Does it work fine?
No.
No?
I don't want to talk about it. No, it's okay. There is a little bit of like ghosting whenever I move windows around. It's sometimes slow, not super slow, but it's noticeable. But it gets me over the one monitor limit on the M1, so I'm happy and angry at the same time.
So who knows why you picked that one, but number 3, so SDI, or Serial Digital Interface. So let's give some background on this since I happen to know a lot about it. It is a coax cable, so plain and simple. And with it, you tend to connect your cameras up to your recording or monitoring equipment. And there have been various iterations of this: 3G SDI, 6G SDI, 12G SDI. And you can simulate like 12G SDI with 4 3G SDI cables. So many cameras don't support 12G SDI, but they do support 4 3G SDI signals coming out of it. And then you kind of patch it together as one image on the receiving end, and so on and so forth. So unfortunately, 48 gig SGI is not a thing because it's just one coax cable. So sorry, everyone. This one is the compiler error.
We didn't get it. We didn't
I hate
get
this
it.
game.
But and that means, sorry, Matt, but you were wrong because this one is absolutely correct. HDMI 2.1 can support HDR10 up to 8K at 120 hertz using
That's
display
insane.
stream compression. So it compresses
display
the
stream
stream.
compression. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So-
then Thunderbolt 4 could probably do, is that using display stream compression? Because
Yep.
then it could do,
It has
8K
to.
is display stream compression. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But like it's a what's that called when you have a stable compression ratio? Like it doesn't move forward or backwards. So you are still limited to certain resolutions. You can't do 12K, for instance. It's still limited to like a range. So it's not omnipotent, but it does do the job for the task that you need it to. And fun fact about display stream compression: the Pro Display XDR 6K monitor supports it, but the 5K monitors do not. So if you wanted to like spec out a super Mac Pro, which I may or may not have done, then you actually can't run as many 5K displays as you can 6K displays, because the 5K displays will use the full bandwidth of the Thunderbolt cable, because none of them use this DisplayPort 2.0 thing yet, even though it exists. So that will saturate everything and saturate the bus, whereas for the 6Ks, you can actually dial down the stream so that way it doesn't use as much data, which is pretty cool. So thanks to both of you for getting that wrong. It's always fun
That was tough.
coming up with ones that people can't figure out. And thank you so much, Matt, for joining us today. Is there anything else you'd like for our audience to know about?
Well, if you want to check out our stuff, head over to astropad.com. Or if you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at MRONGE. That's my Twitter handle, M Runge. Otherwise, I also do a podcast too called Building Astropad, where I kind of dive into some of the behind the scenes of, well, building Astropad and the ups and downs and what we're going through at the time as well. So if that interests you, check it out as well.
Awesome. So yeah, if you want to hear more details about what we went over, then that's the place. I don't think you'll hear it from anywhere else, in fact.
No.
So, as always, I want to personally thank everyone for listening in this week. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Code Completion to know when new episodes get released, and feel free to tweet at us if there's ever a topic you'd like for us to dig into. Most importantly, as a small podcast, please be sure to share this with your friends and family who are also interested in any part of the process of app development. It's your support that enables us to continue doing this, and we hope to grow a healthy community around everything we discuss. So once again, I want to give my thanks to Fernando, who is at From Junior to Senior. That's FROMJRTOSR on Twitter, for joining me this week. My name once again is Dimitri. You can find me at Dimitri Buñol. That's DIMITRIBOUNIOL. And we'll see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, guys.